All right, how we doing? Okay, fun, isn't it? Well, if you didn't like that, you're not going to like this. Um, what's escrow? Escrow's a funny word. Escrow. No, that's not that. Um, it's funny because I use it as a real estate broker differently than a mortgage broker may use it, and differently than you guys might use it. All right. So that's a problem because you've got to understand who you're talking to understand what the word means. That is very common, or that problem is very common in this industry. Matter of fact, in all three of these industries, because when I use the word land as a realtor, I may mean something different than what Joe Blow means when he says land. Because to a real estate agent, land simply means the physical dirt and earth and all the naturally growing plants that are on it. That's it. When a Joe buyer says, I want to buy some land, he wants to buy the physical dirt and earth and all the plants that are on it, plus any of the man-made stuff that we call improvements, plus he wants the rights that come with the property. I call that real property. He may call it land. Escrow's another same thing. As a real estate agent, when I'm talking about my escrow account, when a buyer makes an offer to me, he is going to give me earnest money. That earnest money is going to be held by me in my earnest money account, or what we call an escrow account. So the word escrow here has to do with a buyer's money being held by me as the listing agent until the day of closing. Then we'll take that money to the closing and close escrow, where the lender has started escrow accounts. See what I'm getting at? Or you already lost. Exactly. You'll see what I'm talking about. But as a real estate agent, when we talk about escrow account, I usually mean my earnest money account. All right. And I have to have a special earnest money account, you guys. Title companies can hold earnest money, and you guys will have one of these too. So, for you guys, it may even depend on what you're talking about. Because if you're holding earnest money in your escrow account, that is different than closing in escrow, which is something completely different. One has to do with the closing. The other has to do with money from a client. So in my earnest money account, I hold money in escrow or an impartial third party like a title company or an attorney or basically anybody that we both agree on. If we wanted to agree on my mom's aunt's sister holding it, we could. Wouldn't be a good idea, but anybody could hold it, all right? And when I have an earnest money account or an escrow account, I cannot put other money into it other than escrow. I can't put my personal funds into it. That's called commingling. Very much like I cannot take earnest money from a deal and put it in my personal account. That's also called commingling. All right? Get that. I want you to understand there's two types. Personal money into the escrow account or escrow money into a personal account are both considered commingling. Can't do either one of those. Now, what usually happens is if I put earnest money into my personal or even business account by mistake, say I just transposed two account numbers and it went into the wrong account, I can get caught for commingling. But then what happens is when I go and write a check out of my business account to pay the rent or whatever, I don't know which dollar got used. I also now get hit with what's called conversion. All right, conversion. So those are two usually that go together, commingling and conversion. That's a real estate broker. So when I talk about escrow accounts, I'm talking about buyer's money held for the purpose of a down payment in a deal that I usually have listed. Can't touch the money, can't use the money until closing, and that is said to be in escrow. His earnest money is in escrow. Now, lenders use the word escrow completely different. They talk about escrow accounts or being more like a reserve account. Sometimes you hear them called an impound account. Those terms are used interchangeably, but that's okay because impound, escrow, they mean the same thing, or reserves. So if someone says, I'm paying my insurance and my real estate taxes as part of my house payment, they are going into my escrow account. That is a special account that was created for, the owner, so that when the home insurance comes due, the lender will take the money out of the escrow account or the impound account or the reserves and pay the homeowner's insurance. He will also do the same thing with real estate taxes and pay the real estate taxes. They are also in reserves. All right? So when someone pays their insurance and their taxes to the lender, you get this term, PITI. P-I-T-I. A PITI payment. It's called a PITI payment because it's a pity you have to make it. No, not really. P-I, principal, interest, T, taxes, I, insurance, meaning homeowner's insurance. All right? Not your title insurance. That's separate. That's to close the deal. This is a PITI payment. If someone says, I am making a PITI payment, they are escrowing, i.e. reserves, taxes, and insurance, and the lender will pay those bills for them when they come due. And they do it out of the niceness of their heart. I almost said that with a straight face. That's not true. Why do they do it? Anybody? Got an idea? Got? Really? Go ahead. No, it's not just because the sake of easiness and making one payment. No. Well, it kind of is, I guess, maybe. Yeah, no, exactly. Say it again. Right. That's because the lender could lose the house to a real estate taxes if they don't go paid, so he pays them. What about insurance? Yeah, same thing. Exactly. You don't want the house to burn down. The lender doesn't want the house to burn down and him not be covered. So this is a way that the lender makes sure the taxes get paid and the homeownership gets paid so that it protects the lender's interest in the property. So that's why they escrow, not because they have this overwhelming desire to be nice to you. Okay? So they make a PITI payment. It is here online for you guys at home. It's right here. PITI payment, where T is real estate taxes and I is homeowner's insurance. So to a lender, when someone says we're creating escrow accounts, that's because their house payments are going to be escrowed. The new owner's house payments are going to be escrowed. Now, here's where you guys come in. Finally, when someone refers to closing in escrow, which is what you guys might end up doing, okay? As a title rep, when we schedule the closing for you, I'm going to call you up and go, hey, Dave, I need you to do this deal and pull the title work. Here's the title, TBD, yada, yada, yada. And when we close, we're going to close in escrow. Closing in escrow means that both the buyer and the seller can't be at the same place at the same time. Right, I know, exactly. Dumb, isn't it? Kind of have a pet peeve with this, but sometimes it makes sense. There's two reasons why they can't be there. Same time, due to a time location, or due to a time. I'll start over, Raymond. Take a deep breath. Due to a time conflict, or due to a location conflict. Now, the location conflict I can understand, especially when we're dealing with what we call what? REO homes, right? Because the bank's got to sit in Texas. They're not going to fly someone to Indianapolis to close out this little $12,000 deal or whatever it is, even a $120,000 deal, all right? Because there'd be too many of them. So what happens is the title company sends all the paperwork. Your guys send all the paperwork to the bank sitting in Texas who close, and then they send them back to us, and we come in with the buyer and close at a separate time. So I can understand that closing in escrow. Closing in escrow means both the buyer and the seller will not be in the same room at the same time. That's one reason. Another reason is, and I had one years ago where the guy's like, hey, I just can't make 9 o'clock. We'll go in at 3. So the sellers went in at 3 o'clock. All right, sellers went in at 9 a.m. We went in at 3 p.m. and closed. Just couldn't make it based on time. My guy was the head of the St. Vincent's ER emergency room, and he's like, yeah, I just can't make it. I can't walk off the job as an ER doctor. So closing in escrow, when someone says, hey, we close in escrow, that means the buyer and seller aren't in the same place, usually because of a time issue or potentially because of a location issue. Now, another time you also might hear it is one of you guys here may do this, is actually be called the closing officer, or they call it the escrow officer. This is where you actually run the closing, all right? If you've ever been to closing, everybody here bought a house before? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so you've all bought a house. Cool. So remember the person that sat at the end and kind of ran the show? Sign here, sign here, sign here. That's escrow officer. That's a title. Somebody in the title company does that. The closing officer. We call him payday or boss. You guys may elect to get into that at some point rather than just be a title rep, all right? So they're called the closing officer. So what you end up having is 4 different meanings for this word escrow, and you kind of have to understand who you're talking to and the context around that. It's kind of like the words to, and to. Do I mean TWO, TOO, or TO? Well, you kind of got to listen to the context around it to understand is if I'm going to the store, it's TO. So if I'm talking to a real estate broker and he's like, write me an offer and send me an earnest money check, and we'll put it in escrow. He's talking about putting it in the bank, and that's going to be money because you're dealing with a real estate agent and the word escrow, okay? So what we've touched on a little bit is what title is, how do you find it, why do you buy title insurance, and remember, it's just an insurance policy. It's like any other thing. You guys know when you're going into this that you're going to be insurance salesman, all right? It's just that usually your clients are very select few. And what I mean by that is if you were selling E&O insurance, I didn't want to go with that one. Let's go health insurance. You're going to go out and find the end user, and it benefits the end user. Now, you guys can argue that title insurance benefits the end user, right? Unfortunately, very few people even understand this. So technically or typically, your users are going to be real estate agents, all right? I would venture to say that probably 80 to 90% of all the sales that you guys have will be initiated by an insurance or by a real estate agent. Very few peer-to-peer transactions, A, happen insured, and B, even know about title insurance well enough to get a hold of you, okay? So most of your sales work is going to be with insurance. I keep saying that. Most of your sales work is going to be towards real estate agents, right? Now, you may do some stuff to the general public, but I think you're going to get a better bang for your buck because you're going to come to me and talk to me about your title insurance company and let me worry about dealing with the 100 or 200 clients I have a year, all right? Rather than you finding 200 clients a year end user, okay? Any questions about the principles of title insurance? No? Tell you what, I think that's what we're going to do. Come back, a couple minutes here, and let's do the next section. All right. Any questions? Am I that good or are you guys that good? Both that good?